Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our very first live stream, PAVE Lounge. Let's talk special education. I'm joined by my colleagues. My name is Shonda Hicks, and I am a Parent Resource Coordinator for the Parent Training Information Program here at PAVE.
Good evening. I'm Sherry Mashburn. I'm a Parent Resource Coordinator, and I've been with PAVE for 38 years.
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm also a Parent Resource Coordinator with PAVE.
Thanks for being here with us. So Parent Training and Information, or PTI, is a program of PAVE. Our nonprofit has been helping families in Washington state since 1979. PTI provides information, training, and resources for families, youth, and professionals to understand student rights and educational service systems. For the next 45 minutes, the PAVE Lounge will be a live Q&A session with our PAVE Parent Resource Coordinators ready to answer your questions about special education right here and now. Before we get started, we have some housekeeping rules. Please respect the privacy of students, staff members, and schools by avoiding names and personally identifiable information. The comments are being closely monitored, and inappropriate or unkind comments will be deleted, so be nice out there. To take part in the Q&A, simply type your questions into the comments and press send. Then listen for the response from our Parent Resource Coordinators. At the end of our live stream, this video will be available on PAVE's Facebook page, as well as on the YouTube channel. It's all being recorded, so you can refer back to it later and watch anything that you might have missed. We have a couple more things to share before we start the Q&A. There's some essential words and phrases to help you understand the special education process. IEP, or Individualized Education Program, is a detailed document developed for each public school student who needs special education. It includes specific educational goals, the services provided, progress tracking, and accommodations. A 504 plan is a plan developed to ensure that a child who has a disability identified under the law and is attending an elementary or secondary educational institution receives accommodations that will ensure their academic success and access the learning environment. LRE, or least restrictive environment, is the requirement that students with disabilities receive their education with non-disabled peers to the maximum extent appropriate. FAPE stands for Free Appropriate Public Education. This is an educational right of children with disabilities in the United States that is guaranteed by the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and the Individuals with Disabilities Act, or IDEA. So now, it's time for our live Q&A. The PAVE Lounge is now open. Do you have questions about the special education process? Not sure how to start or where your next step should be? Please type your questions into the comment feature now and press send. We're here to provide answers and guidance. While you're typing in some of your questions, we'll go over some of your resources here in Washington State. These websites listed will help you connect with your support through the state of Washington. Take a screenshot now, or you can play this video back later and view the list again. Notice that we've included some of our PAVE resources in the top right corner, including toolkits ready for you. If you don't get to ask your question in the live stream, you can reach us through the Get Help form on the PAVE website. We hope you'll connect with PAVE to get involved and stay informed. And of course, we would love to hear from you. Our feedback is essential. Your feedback is essential to help us enhance our trainings and events. So please take a few moments to complete our quick survey and help us better meet your needs. So it looks like we have let's see. We have a couple of questions already queued up while you input your questions into the chat. So Sherry, I know one question that comes up a lot during the school year is, how do I request an evaluation for my child?
Requesting an evaluation needs to be in writing. I recommend that the referral itself go to either the school psychologist in the building or the special ed director of your school district. And then they have a timeline to meet to respond to your request.
Yeah, that's correct. And the district has to respond in writing within 25 school days. And then if they decide to proceed, then after that, they have 35 school days to complete the evaluation. And after that, the IEP, or the individualized education program, must be developed within 30 calendar days. Again, always requesting things in writing is important to ensure documentation. So here's a question from Jeff over on the YouTube. Jeff asks, what should we know about military families?
Well, my understanding is military families have the same rights as every other family within their school district. I know there are special folks within the military that also support those families. But if a family lives off base, again, the school district they're in are responsible for providing supports for those babies.
Yeah, agreed. As some of the other questions are coming in, another thing that comes up pretty often is, what does the process look like for an IEP, or if a child needs educational supports? And under OSPI, there is a 10-step process of referral, where you make that written request that Sherry talked about to evaluate your child for special education. The second is the consent to evaluate. The initial evaluation after that 35 school days after you consent, and then it goes to the report, eligibility and consent, where if your child is eligible, they can receive special education services once you consent. Then that creation of the IEP. Special education then begins, and then there's progress monitoring and also your annual IEP review that's updated every year. Reevaluation happens every 3 years with an IEP, and then by age 16, a transition plan would be included into the IEP for that post-high school transition space.
Shonda, I just have one suggestion, and that is important, I think, for families to have a copy of the evaluation report. It's extremely valuable in looking at test scores and also what the district has found with that evaluation. So it's a good idea to ask for it in writing.
Absolutely. Thanks for adding that. Looks like from Facebook, Dee asked the question. Thanks for being here with us, Dee. What happens if a child has a BIP, which is a behavioral intervention plan, that isn't followed and they get suspended? That's an excellent question, Dee. Sherry, do you have any guidance on that one?
Well, there's a lot of information about suspension, why a child would be suspended if the behavior intervention plan was being followed, if not. But again, I always recommend to families that they set up and ask for a meeting to discuss the suspension and also get the documentation regarding the suspension, why the child was suspended, what happened, and there you go.
Yeah, and of course, if your child is being sent home frequently, you can request a manifestation determination meeting to determine if the behavior is a manifestation of your child's disability and whether the current supports are meeting their students' needs. So there's also the option to consider additional supports that could be put into the BIP, or the behavioral intervention plan, or requesting a functional behavioral assessment to re-identify some of the reasons behind the BIP not being accurate and supporting your student. So Elizabeth Soto asks, can we ask for a reevaluation before the 3 years? It's a really good question.
That is a great question, and yes, you can. Again, going to the school psychologist asking for a reeval is a good idea. And there isn't any specific timeline. So usually, if there's been a change in your child, a change in the program, something that would indicate that the evaluation needs to be updated, absolutely, you can ask for that.
Ask for it in writing. Always ask for it in writing.
Oh, that's always in writing.
Always ask for it in writing. Always.
There's a saying, if it isn't documented, it didn't happen.
Exactly.
And documenting by email is perfect.
And there's so much going on.
And there's always, you could go to wapave.org and you can put in evaluation in the search bar, and some articles and toolkits can pop up.
Cassie Klein is asking, our son has a 504 for a genetic condition, ADHD, and anxiety. Now that he's in middle school, he is struggling academically. When and how should we request an IEP, and can I have a child have both a 504 and an IEP? Thank you. It's a great question, actually. Who wants to take it?
Well, a child usually has either a 504 or an IEP. And if he has a 504 now, making the request again in writing for an evaluation to determine if he would be eligible. Also, a medical 504 can be attached, or those accommodations would be part of an IEP as well.
But generally, no, you don't have both an IEP and a 504. You generally either have a 504, which is through the American Disabilities Act, or an IEP, which is through the IDEA. And so they're two separate ways to get protected. Good question. Can a Catholic school do IEPs?
That's coming from Danielle over on YouTube. Thanks for being with us, Danielle. Sherry, do you want to start on that one?
If a Catholic school wants to do an IEP, they can do an IEP. Generally, IEPs are done with public schools. Yeah. So it depends on what, what services you would want to have at the Catholic school and also then at the public school. And you can have both. Yeah. It's possible.
It is possible. And under private schools, if they have the capacity as well as the wherewithal to support an IEP, they would do that there. However, you can do that. So supports, like Sherry's saying, under FAPE, free and public education at our public schools, where they can accommodate and support an IEP in a public school setting. Helena asks over on YouTube, thanks for being with us, Helena. My son's 4th grade class has 7 out of 16 peers with IEPs. They either have learning disabilities or social emotional needs or both. My son has both on his IEP. How can I advocate to get para support?
One thing that comes to mind is, how is he doing in that classroom? What is his behavior in the classroom? Is he making progress in the classroom? What is the teacher saying about his academic ability and his behavior? Is he learning in the classroom? Those are important questions to ask. If he isn't, and he does need a para, then that's a discussion for the IEP team, of which you are a large part.
Mm-hmm. And I'm always a big believer
availability, remember.
But you always can ask too. Like, that is all unasked questions is no, in my opinion. So there's always calling the IEP meeting together and finding out also what the team also feels about it. We'll also get an understanding whether or not you're going to get it
Yeah, and one of the things as a parent, you can always call an IEP meeting whenever you feel the need to communicate with the team, and that's at your discretion. It doesn't have to always be during a reeval or an annual. It can be to discuss things like this, like Helene was talking about needing para support, and getting some of that documentation too to prove that.
Another thought is to ask the teacher for a class schedule. Find out exactly what his schedule is during the day. What is he doing the minute he hits the classroom? What does that look like? Who is with him? Who, what, where, when, and why? Remember those questions that you can ask that also would support your feelings that your little guy needs a para or your big guy.
Yeah. Sarah Teague Schmeltz says from Facebook, would it be illegal for a school district to deny a student to enroll in the online program that is offered to general education students simply because they have an IEP? I think that's a pretty specific question. And it sounds like it's something that, maybe we do have a helpline over at PAVE, and we have access to one-on-one supports where this question can be entertained kind of in a deep dive with if it pertains to you and your family. We do suggest everyone, if you do need that one-on-one support, we have family parent support resource coordinators like us available. You just put your information in and we contact you back, and you get adequate time to talk about your student and what's going on and get resources and support to make those decisions. You can put dispute on the search bar when you go to wapave.org. I see another question about, can homeschool children have an IEP or a 504? And I love that question from Ms. Redhead Chic. I love that tagline too over at YouTube. Thanks for being with us. One of my students is actually a homeschool student. And that is something, if you have an IEP or 504, you can lean into the school district for those particulars and access to the free and public education at the school district where you reside. And so those pieces would be supported by the public education system, and your child would still be under that homeschool guise to be able to create curriculum that's adapted to your child through the homeschool route.
They can also join sports. They can do a dual enrollment. They can be part of, the public school services that are offered in any way, shape, or form that you choose.
Yeah, you can craft it really unique to your student. It's one of the things that if you have a child that, like my son has a lot of medical complexity, and it really works out that we have a homeschool type base, but accessing specials or some of those extracurriculars, as well as things that are in the IEP, it keeps things in line and as well as gets him the best services and education possible.
I've talked with parents who've had their children in the play because there's been theater that they wanted to participate in and or music. So all of that is available.
Yeah, we really appreciate everyone joining us. I want to again reiterate about personalized support. You can submit a help request at wapave.org/gethelp. Amy, you want to read Elizabeth's question in the chat?
How do we know for we need an IEP or a 504 plan? Okay, so how do we know if we need an IEP or a 504 plan? That depends. It depends on so many unique things on your students. It depends on evaluation scores. It depends on how many areas your child needs support in, the type of support your child needs. A 504, and a 504 tends to have less support. Would somebody else be able to explain it a little better than I can right now?
Sure.
504 plans are there we go. 504 plans generally are for general education classrooms. It's mostly for accommodations so that a general education teacher understands what the disability is, and knows what accommodations need to be provided. Those decisions should have been made at your 504 team meeting. And what I think is an option for parents, once you have that 504 plan, a couple of things. You make sure that each of your child's teachers has a copy of it. And then also, again, a good idea is to contact teachers and make sure that the accommodations are working. Because many times we have accommodations and they're just sort of sitting there, looking really nice, but they're not effective. And so having that contact with individual teachers is a really good idea, whether it's every week, every month, whatever you all choose.
Yeah. And it also helps build relationship with the team. And it helps, as a parent, it helps you feel more comfortable knowing what's going on with your student at school, because it can reflect back at home, or likewise, it can be different. So building that relationship, I think, is really key to getting your student the best education. So Yvonne has chimed in the chat. Thanks for being here, Yvonne. Do I have the right to add accommodations to my child's IEP? I often feel like I'm not heard during the overwhelming meetings. And overwhelming they can be, Yvonne. We definitely validate that experience with you. You definitely can call that IEP meeting as a parent, and you can request to add accommodations into your child's IEP. And you can even ask for an evaluation to identify what of those accommodations would be best suited, and then go from there.
And you can refuse to sign. If you are not happy with the IEP meeting for whatever reason and you feel like you're not being heard, you do not have to sign until you're comfortable. That too, sometimes it's better to take the IEP away, take it home, take some breaths, because it's so emotional in that moment, and just really understand it. And if you're not happy, call another IEP meeting. And if you can bring friends with you, bring a spouse with you, find somebody else in the community that can come with you, because from what I'm hearing, the overwhelmingness of all the people on the other side of the table, sometimes it's just, you can take some deep breaths when you have somebody just to check on your mental health, make sure you have something to drink. It's more than just a meeting, right? This is your kid.
Yeah. And it's really good to have that backbone support too as a parent. And that's one thing that we offer at PAVE as well through parent training information, is one-on-one supports, including access to resources and tools that can prepare you for those IEP meetings, as well as if need be, we can support you in an IEP meeting. Those toolkits are on the website under wapave.org, and you can search toolkit in the toolbar. There's quite a few to glean from, and they're all super helpful. So I have a question as well. So a lot of times there's an IEP and you're noticing as a parent that your child should be receiving more service minutes than what they have been getting. What do you think about how to get them help to get the required adequate time that's on the IEP?
If the time is on the IEP, which it should be under the service matrix, then that's a decision that's been made by an IEP team. To increase those minutes, a couple of things would have to happen. Perhaps a reevaluation, or certainly a discussion with the IEP team. That team is important, but you're part of it. And I know sometimes it feels like we're not, but we are. And we have a lot of decision making. And again, those babies are our babies. And so it's okay to be involved and to ask questions. I think one of the things that, for me at any rate, it was difficult in the beginning. I didn't want anybody to think I was stupid, that I didn't understand all the words. And so it took me a while to figure out that it was important for me to ask questions so that I did understand.
Yeah. It takes a while to be educated on the special education process. And so knowing that we don't know all that we don't know. That's why we rely on those that came before us, as well as those like us that have a little bit more knowledge in our data bank to be able to provide resources to families. Anne Marie wrote, I'm so frustrated by my district. I printed your toolkit. Awesome, Anne Marie. We really hope it helps. And again, you're always welcome to use that helpline, and a one-to-one resource support person will get back to you if you need anything more than the toolkit.
Sometimes as parents, we don't realize how important our role is on the IEP too. I think we feel minimized. And so that's one thing I always try to remind everybody is you're the most important member of the team. You're the one that's responsible for the child. You're the one that's going to be with that child from the time they're tiny until they're grown. And so, and it's hard to remember that when we think everybody has a better education than we do or anything else. And it's just not true. We're experts in our child.
Lived experience is everything. We know our student best. Danielle writes in, can you explain the difference between an IEP and an EAP?
I hope someone else can do that. I am not.
Maybe Danielle, if you're still with us, we appreciate it. I don't know what an EAP stands for. Maybe I'm reduced to a different acronym, but I would love to answer your question, honestly. If you could write in the chat a little bit more, we would be happy to reflect back to you. Oh, Amanda Gaskell says, Sherry, you're amazing. You've helped me so many times. This is so nice that this is live. Sherry, we will second that. Sherry is amazing, Amanda, and we're so glad you're able to get support. So Danielle, thank you, Danielle, for writing back an educational adjustment plan, Sherry.
Oh, an educational adjustment plan. Never heard of it. I'm sorry. Maybe it's in some obscure something or other. But I really do have to tell you, I've never heard of that. Is the district using that acronym or that phrase to talk about an IEP, or is it coming from perhaps another agency or another organization that's using that within their own framework? Or
and Danielle, I would really suggest going to maybe a one-on-one, and we could do a deep dive with you, because maybe it is something that is crafted, but it's called something in your district that it's called otherwise somewhere else. And of course, with text and the internet, there's always a layer of intelligibility. So on our end, please use the helpline. We're happy to get back with you, answer your question, and figure out those pieces with you. Elizabeth writes in, where can we learn more about what kind of accommodations there are for our kids?
I suggest to parents that if you get online and you look and search for accommodations, you're going to come up with 3,000 of them. And just look and sort out what you can see your child needing. But there are a lot of accommodations out there. And you know your child, and you know what they're going to need. Are they going to need to sit close to the teacher, or are they going to need to sit really far away from the teacher? So it just, those are decisions that we make.
Yeah, and some of the accommodations that I've seen that are pretty typical are utilizing some modalities in your seat. There's wiggle seats. Some of them can even be like pencil grips, or utilizing a chalkboard instead of pencil and paper. Whatever works for the student, and however best their sensory environment is integrated, as well as how they're able to access their education, whatever works best for them.
An accommodation could be that they don't eat in the lunchroom. An accommodation could be that music is too much, and so there's another place for them to go. So there's all kinds of accommodations.
You bet. There was some questions we had talked about prior about transition as well, and talking about the transition process. and acknowledging that transition really does start way ahead of that time that we actually transition our student out of school. But is there anything in particular, Sherry, you feel like a family or needs to know about the transition process?
Well, it can start at 14. Generally speaking, it starts at 16. Looking at goals and objectives that support it. We generally want to think about, as parents, we want to think about credit. Are our children going to have the 24 credits in our state that's necessary for graduation? I'm a big believer personally in diplomas. Not everyone is, I understand that. But for me, for our family, diplomas were a big must. And it didn't matter what our child's abilities were. Some of them had them and some of them didn't. And so, but they all in our family, we wanted diplomas. So we look at transition, how to get them. The other thing is that our children can have the party. They can walk and have the ceremony at age 18 and then come back and do a 3-year transition or a 2-year transition, whatever, or 1 year, whatever is appropriate. I will say that it really is important to have this discussion before our children get to the point where there's talk of graduation. Yeah. It's really, really important.
Yeah.
So.
I would be suggesting, at the age, like you said, of age 14. And now a student can go to transition services, including vocational, up to their 22nd birthday. So yes. that's a new addition to special education services up to that 22nd birthday.
And I suggest bringing it up. Don't wait for them to bring it up. You bring it up if you know about it, that your son or daughter's birthday is coming up, your child's birthday is coming up, and their IEP. Definitely, you bring it up first, because I've seen it not be brought up several times. So that's just my suggestion.
Yeah, always have the conversation.
In writing.
In writing.
Ask in writing.
Now's the time to put in any other questions that you have lingering that you would like answered into our chat. Happy to entertain them as they come in. One thing that's really interesting is manifestation determination. And it's such a big, obscure words as it is. And then when those words are brought up to a family, what does that mean? How does that work? And when is it needed? And so I wondered, Sherry, would you would like to do a little talk about manifestation determination, when it's required and what the process is?
Usually when a student is approaching 10 days, because there's sort of this little 10-day rule that if a child has been suspended in a school year for 10 days or up to 10 days, or there's a pattern of exclusion, then the district is required to have a manifestation determination. There's two questions that are asked at the meeting. One is, was the behavior a result of the disability? Did the disability, was it a result of the child's disability? So that's question number one. And then question number two is, was the IEP complied with? Was it there, and was it, was it complied with? And then there's a discussion about what to do, for instance, with the student and what they need to support. If the suspension is completed, remember that it doesn't matter how long our children are suspended. Well, it does matter, but our children have the right to continue their education, even though they are suspended. So that would start at about the 10 day, where schools are to continue the support educationally of the babies. So That was a minor discussion about manifestation.
Well, and it's such an ambiguous term, and just acknowledging that if it is found in that manifestation that the disability, the student's disability, is that's what the behavior can actually occurred, then the school can't proceed with the same disciplinary actions as a non-disabled student. Instead, they must do like a reevaluation and provide adequate behavioral supports and interventions.
And the student comes back to school. The student comes back to school.
Looks like Tracy put in our chat the OSPI providing special education services until age 22 link, which is fantastic. Lots of information on there and guidance around that up to age 22 transition services. And if you are joining us from outside of Washington State, you have questions about navigating special education processes, you can contact your local PTI, Parent Training Information Center, and get some information and resources just like we have here in Washington State in your own area. Looks like we might have time for one, maybe two more questions before we wrap it up. Yvonne says, why is ADHD not recognized as a disability? My son only qualifies for his IEP because of his autism diagnosis.
Well, I would think ADHD would affect him. And if it's a ADHD, it's a medical diagnosis. And again, how is it affecting him educationally? Many times children are identified with autism and ADHD. And so how does it affect them in the classroom? How does it affect them on the playground? How does it affect him in the hallway? So ADHD is certainly if it affects our children educationally, then it certainly is recognized and should be in an evaluation. And then the evaluation, how that is recognized, would be then transferred onto an IEP with recommendations. I just have one thing to say, Shonda, and that is for families who are looking at forms. At OSPI's website, there's this wonderful little place you ask for special education forms, and they're all there. So you can go on and you can look at for IEPs, you can look at prior written notice, you can look at a referral form for special education or for evaluations, and it's a handy little place to go.
Yeah, I've utilized it often as well, Sherry. Thanks for bringing that up. And if you forget the link, it's there on our little toolbar. It's ospi.k12.wa.us, and then just type those words special education process in the search bar. And again, we're always here to help with our helpline request form, where someone can reach into you and support you with your specific need or guide you to these places as well for resources and support. We would like to hear back from you about how this live lounge went. Again, we're encouraging you to share back to us with that QR link about how things went, how we can do better for you next time. So we do have some upcoming trainings and events here at the PAVE calendar. We have another QR code for you, or you can go on our PAVE website under calendar and find all of the upcoming trainings and events in your area, accessible either in person, hybrid, or Zoom. We want to thank you so much for being here. It was a really great evening. Thanks for your questions and for tuning in. You're welcome to contact us with that Get Help link. It connects you with support, training, information, and resources at wapave.org/gethelp. We also have a line you can call into if you don't have access to internet at 1-800-5PARENT or 253-565-2266. Language translation services are available, so by all means, please let us support you and your special education students' journey. We thank you so much for being here. As some more questions roll in, please, by all means, reach into us at the wapave.org website, and we're happy to reach back out and answer them. We look forward to next time. Thanks for being here.